At the Revolutionary Army's main base. Ever since Jinny was captured, bad things kept happening. Today, they received news that the rebels in Kuma, in the southern sea region, were being overwhelmed and needed reinforcements. Ivankov refused, as there were currently many wounded people from other kingdoms on their ship. Hearing this, Kuma cast aside all his sadness from losing Jinny and volunteered to go reinforce the rebels. With his devil fruit ability, he could reach the location in an instant. Ivankov objected, fearing Kuma's mental state was unstable. However, just as he ran to stop his comrade, Kuma activated his teleportation ability on himself and flew away at the speed of sound. The scene shifts to the southern sea, where soldiers equipped with armor and weapons were overwhelming the rebels. The very next second, Kuma landed in the middle of the battle, filled with resentment towards those sent by the celestial dragons. Every time he remembered the image of that woman, he fell into despair. The day Jinny was captured, Dragon received news that a celestial dragon had taken an interest in her, which was why the government had captured her to be that man's wife. At present, Kuma was much stronger than before, no matter how hard the soldiers tried. They couldn't do anything to him. The young man activated his devil fruit ability, unleashing his ultimate move, Ursa Shock, blowing away all enemies. But the anger in his heart remained. Saving that woman from the celestial dragon was impossible. But at least Kuma had freed the people there from the brutal rule of the king. After 3 years of non-stop fighting, the Revolutionary Army immediately became heroes in their eyes, and the flag of liberation flew high. But no one could understand the pain Kuma was enduring. After resolving the situation, the young man called Dragon, saying he was very tired and needed to rest for a while. The scene shifts to 2 years later, from the time Jinny was captured and became the celestial dragon's wife. Today, for some unknown reason, she managed to escape and brought a child with her. This was the child Jinny had with that celestial dragon. After returning to her familiar home, Jinny immediately called her comrades. Hearing Kuma's voice, she tried to sound cheerful as before, saying she was back. Everyone was happy she was alive. But the very next second, Jinny revealed that she had an incurable illness. That's why she was discarded and returned like this. Although she really wanted to see everyone again, she probably couldn't anymore. This would be her final farewell to her comrades and Kuma. He heard this and also shed tears, thinking they would never see each other again. He asked where she was and said he would come immediately. But she stopped him, saying she was about to die anyway and didn't want her comrades to see her in this state. For people who had faced life and death together like Ivankov and Kuma, hearing Ginny's farewell felt like the sky was about to collapse. Although she knew their feelings, she still wished everyone wouldn't come. At the decisive moment, Kuma remembered there was only one place for Jinny to return to. That was the church where they grew up together. As he left, the woman asked Dragon and Ivankov to take care of their friend. Jinny uttered her last words, saying she would always love Kuma, then closed her eyes and passed away. Later, the young man returned to the old house and saw the elders still waiting there. Going inside, he saw Jinny, only a soulless body remaining. No matter how many times he called her name, she did not respond. Her body and face were covered in stones. Jinny had previously said that when exposed to sunlight, her skin would turn blue and she would be unable to move. This illness was the cause of the kind woman's untimely death. Old memories flooded back, making Kuma cry out in regret. Unable to bring happiness to that woman, every promise the joyful words of Jinny kept appearing. And in his saddest moment, Bonney's cries awakened Kuma. Everyone said this was Ginny's daughter, a child who would live on in place of her mother's unfortunate life. Before that, with her last ounce of strength, Jinny had crossed the scorching sea to return to this place and entrust the baby to everyone. From that moment, Kuma also swore to protect Bonney for the rest of his life. And so, the unfortunate mother was carefully buried. Kuma became a father, but he didn't know how to raise a child. Fortunately, the elderly people there had a lot of experience. Every day they came to teach the big father how to feed Bonney milk. Everyone was even afraid that Kuma's giant body would crush his daughter. So they requested that Bonney be kept in an iron cage when sleeping for safety. The mischievous child was extremely fond of eating. Just like Jinny, everyone thought she would grow up to be a beautiful woman like her mother. Time continued to pass until now. The little one could crawl around on her own, and then stand on her own 2 feet and walk to her father. To everyone's excitement, hearing Bonney call him Papa, Kuma was extremely moved and hugged his small child, carefully raised by her kind father and the elderly people in the village. Bonney developed very quickly. During that time, Kuma often had to ask the villagers to help take care of her. He himself had to go fight for the Revolutionary Army to liberate the unfortunate lives out there. And his fighting power grew stronger and stronger. This was also the time when Sabo was accepted into the Revolutionary Army. Life seemed like it would be happy and joyful. But then the saddest thing happened. Bonney began to show signs of an incurable disease. Just like Jinny, that night, as soon as he completed his mission, Kuma returned to his daughter. The two father and daughter happily hugged each other. However, after realizing the child's terrible illness, the father had to close all the windows so that sunlight could not shine inside. The childhood friends who came to visit the two father and daughter that day were also curious to ask what Kuma was doing. And after seeing the blue stones on the cute girl's face, they understood and immediately ran to find a doctor to examine her. However, this disease is very rare and completely incurable. Although many doctors were consulted, there was only one result. They had never seen this symptom before. To save his daughter's life, Kuma decided to leave the Revolutionary Army to find a cure for Bonney. At least he wanted to be with her. And this request was approved by Dragon. He wanted them to live a life without regrets. And at the same time, the Revolutionary Army would go everywhere to inquire about the disease the girl was suffering from. The scene shifts to when Bonney was 5 years old. Occasionally, some children living in the village would tease her. Her personality was very similar to her deceased mother's. If she was provoked, she would immediately scare her friends away. Knowing that Bonney's weakness was sunlight, they also ran outside the door to provoke her. As a result, they were kicked directly in the face because as long as she was within the church's range, she would be fine. Kuma saw this and quickly ran to stop her, fearing his daughter would run outside. Fortunately, this child was very understanding and told her father not to worry. She would listen and not leave the church. She was also afraid of making her father sad, so she was praised for becoming a good girl, because she was often teased about the stones on her face. The daughter wondered if these stones were ugly. But this was a disease, so she had to bear it and couldn't do anything. Kuma praised them as beautiful gems to make her happy. He also lied that the children really wanted them, which was why they tried to tease her. In the evening, the father also asked where Bonney would like to travel if she could. The girl ran to get a book about islands in the sky, thought that the sky island was near the sun, so Nika might be there. He also wanted to meet that warrior once. Hearing this, Kuma immediately danced Nika's dance for his daughter to see. Bonney then learned it, and the two promised that when she turned 20, they would go find Nika together. At night, after the child fell asleep, Kuma talked to a good doctor. He knew about that disease and called it sapphire scale disease. When exposed to sunlight, moonlight, or other natural light, the stones on the body would spread. Even if completely avoiding light exposure, it would still develop. Their conversation accidentally woke Bonney. The doctor was also helpless and had no way to cure it. He also told Kuma directly to prepare himself, that his daughter only had 5 more years to live. As soon as she reached her 10th birthday, the disease would take her life. Hearing this, Kuma sadly turned back, not knowing what to do. Bonney mischievously ran out to scare him, saying she had heard it. Fortunately, his daughter only heard someone talking about her 10th birthday. She asked her father what happened, and Kuma had to lie, saying that the doctor said she would be cured by the age of 10. He cried because the time was too long, wanting Bonney to get well quickly so the two could travel everywhere. Hearing this, the girl was extremely excited because then she could travel with her father. Another year passed, and that night, nightmares returned to the Sorbet Kingdom. The elders in the village rushed to ask Kuma for help. They said that King Bekori was doing something similar to 16 years ago. He wanted to burn innocent people alive here. Hearing this, Kuma was extremely indignant.